Okay, got it. Okay, well, hello everyone. Welcome to Healthy Joints, Healthy Lifestyle Show. And for those who don't know me, I'm Dr. Arinola Dada, and I have an amazing guest today, and we're going to talk about fun stuff. Okay, so I have Dr. Anita Lwanga on the line, and she is an amazing physician. She is an exercise physiologist. She's a general internist, and by training a geriatrician. She's also the assistant professor of general internal medicine at the University of Saskatchewan. So I have an amazing, and we're going to talk fun stuff, okay? We're going to talk, and Dr. Anita has even given me personal tips. I've known Dr. Anita for like a couple of years now, and she has given me personal tips, and she's going to share this with all of you. And so our topic is, we're going to, at the end of this, we're going to come away with 3 tips that you can use to lose weight and get that osteoarthritis pain under control. So, Dr. Anita, would you please tell us about you, share something about yourself? Tell me.
First of all, I want to thank you for having me on your show. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you because I know you're super busy, and also to introduce myself to your audience. So as Dr. Dada mentioned, my name is Anita Lwanga. I'm a physician, but prior to all that, I was actually a competitive gymnast. So I have a lot of interest in how we can use our nutrition, our exercise, and our sleep, not only to improve our performance, but to improve our day-to-day life. But I started experimenting on myself as a competitive athlete. I'll change what I eat, my performance would change, I'd sleep less, and I noticed my performance would change. And then I formalized that, experimental knowledge during my undergrad studies in kinesiology. Specifically, I did an undergraduate degree in exercise and health physiology. And that's where a lot of my knowledge about nutrition comes from. And also a lot of my knowledge about how you can use different forms of exercise to kind of modify the way your body looks. The interesting thing is that for me, even though I knew a lot of these things in theory, I did not necessarily apply them properly. During med school, I'm happy to say that I'm probably one of the people that managed to sleep 8 hours because I knew I wasn't going to retain most of the information. Most of my friends thought I was crazy. I was going to bed at 9, but that helped me retain most of the information. But my eating habits were fairly poor. I'd have to say I was probably genetically blessed, and I did okay until I finished residency. And then I'm like, okay, I'm telling people to eat healthy, but my breakfast is a latte and a chocolate bar. And, this is not good. So I started eating more healthy meals, but I was probably eating the wrong kinds of foods at the wrong time. I was also working a night job and doing the wrong kind of workouts. So I actually ended up gaining weight, which is the opposite of what you'd expect. But I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate. A lot of people can relate to trying to go to the gym, working hard, and you're not losing the weight. So I finally got frustrated. And last year, November, I got a nutrition coach. And he helped me tweak a lot of the stuff we learned in medical school and a lot of the stuff I learned during my undergraduate degree and apply it to myself. And I was shocked. I was very skeptical, to be honest. I was like, we'll see. He's like, you're going to lose about 25 pounds. I was like, in 12 weeks. But, I gave him the benefit of the doubt because I'm like, what I'm doing is not working. And I actually overshot that. I ended up losing a little bit more than 30 pounds over a longer period of time.
Wow.
But it was shockingly simple. And I'm like, let me share these tips with other people because it's like small tweaks can really make such a big difference. So this is how I started talking primarily about weight loss, sleep, and exercise, in addition to the medical knowledge that I share with my patients.
Wow, that is just so much to unpack there. You are like, I almost feel like we need to have 3 parts of this interview. So I'm going to even just start from the point of envy. How on earth were you sleeping 8 hours in medical school? I don't want that. I'm jealous. I'm jealous. Wow. That is, that's the person I was like, what? There's such a person? But you know what? That is so important, right? When you're young, you have no clue. But I think you are smarter than most of us, right? Most of us just running on empty. And so, so that's interesting. I think the other part that you mentioned is kind of had a nutritional coach. And, and that's the other thing I think would say that is so important is understanding that you've been doing the same thing and you're not getting the results that you want. And you're like, okay, let me get this nutrition coach. But I think the benefits to our patients is you have the benefits of what you learned from the nutrition coach plus all your experience. So your experience as an internal medicine doc, your experience as with the exercise physiology background makes you almost the perfect person to help most of our patients. So we are itching to find out what these three things are. But yeah, so I'm actually itching. I always have my pen in hand. So yeah, I think that you would be the perfect person, because not just because you're aware of the physiology, you know how our body works, you're an internal medicine doc. And so I think you'll be able to kind of capture a lot of what the nutritionist had to say, and I think kind of provide kind of a package that will work for most of our patients.
Yes, absolutely. And I kind of want to frame it for your patient population in particular, especially your patients that suffer with osteoarthritis. So the CDC reported that about 22% of adults that are overweight end up being diagnosed with osteoarthritis. I'm sure you're aware of this as a rheumatologist. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, 32% of patients that are obese have also been diagnosed with osteoarthritis. And we often find for our patients that are either overweight or have osteoarthritis, not overweight, that are overweight or obese, once they lose weight, the joint pain tends to improve. And even if you're not obese, just being 10 pounds overweight, they did some studies and they found if you're carrying an extra 10 pounds, every time you walk, that increases the force on your knees by about 60 pounds, 30 to 60 pounds. And that's a lot of force. That's a lot of force. So that's a big reason why I think this topic is extremely important. And in terms of those three tips, I'm going to use a mnemonic to kind of frame our talk. It's SEEC. S stands for sleep. E stands for eat. And then the second E stands for emotions. So tip number one, in terms of sleep, and you were talking about you envy me. I need to sleep because I'm one of those people, I'm grouchy. If I don't sleep, like my brain's not working. So it's like, for me, it's like air. It's like air. So why is sleep so important? Well, when we sleep, our body kind of resets itself. It resets a lot of the hormones. So there's several hormones that are reset. Cortisol, for example. When we wake up in the morning, we know this, we learned this in med school, your cortisol levels go up and that gives you the energy to get going and keep going through your day. But the problem is that if you're not sleeping enough, your cortisol levels remain elevated. And we know this as physicians, theoretically, if you have high cortisol levels, you tend to have higher blood pressure and it's very hard to lose the weight around your stomach.
Yeah.
On top of that, there's two hormones, leptin and ghrelin. Ghrelin, I think of it like a little gremlin that's hungry. So if you don't sleep, your ghrelin levels are going to go up and you're going to eat like a gremlin. You're not going to think about what you're eating. You're just going to want to eat whatever. So they've actually found, independent of those hormones, when you don't sleep enough, it's harder to make very good choices about what you're going to eat. You may have good intentions, but when you're exhausted, you want more energy, you're just going to grab whatever's in the vending machine. And then going to leptin. Leptin, L is for lowering. So leptin lowers your hunger levels. It's the hormone that makes you feel full. If you don't sleep enough, your leptin remains elevated. So you have a lot of things working against you. On top of that, insulin resistance is increased in people that don't sleep enough. And there's also a challenge for us as physicians. Some of us have shift working jobs where we work at night and then sleep during the day. And they found people who have shift working jobs or work at night also tend to have high cortisol levels, insulin resistance, and you're awake at night, you feel like you need to treat yourself, so you're going to choose whatever's in the vending machine or pack whatever to comfort yourself because you're stuck working at night, which is what I did. So that is sleep. And an interesting story about sleep. So my brother noticed I lost a lot of weight and I gave him a bunch of tips. He said, I'm just going to take sleep. That's one tip. He still eats his pizza. He doesn't have time to work out for now. But he went from sleeping 5 hours to sleeping about 7 or 8. In 1 month, he lost 11 pounds.
Wow.
That's the power of sleep alone.
So we think that would probably be the cortisol then. That would be the stress hormone that he was able to reduce. And so by sleeping more, he reduced the stress hormone. We just wanted to make it very, very simple. And probably even was able to focus more on what he was doing, right? I think life changed, right? He changed. When his stress residue reduced, he slept better, cortisol level came back, and probably the decision he makes during the day without, just guessing that these decisions during the day probably changed too, just because his stress changed.
Absolutely. But the funny thing is, when he called me to announce this, he was still eating his pizza. So I don't know what happened.
But yeah, so cortisol is massive, right? So yeah, so
Yes.
reducing the stress. So that was good. So sleep, we have cortisol, we have the gremlin that makes you hungry, and we have the leptin that helps to calm down the hunger. Okay, so sleep is important. We got that one tip. Tip two.
Number two is about eating. So I can't take credit for this, but somebody, I don't know where I read it, had a saying. If you're choosing foods, choose foods that fly, that swim, that walk, and that grow that way. So let us analyze our typical breakfast. Some of us are, don't have time to have breakfast. So we stop by my favorite Starbucks. You're going to get your latte and you're going to be like, oh, I'm going to be healthy. I'm going to get those little egg white bites or like a little reduced fat turkey bacon sandwich. That was my go-to. The latte did not come out of the earth that way. They put the soy milk. That was my favorite, soy milk in there because it's sweet. They put all, the whipped cream, or they put whatever toppings in there. The coffee is pretty close to its natural form, but the syrups and all that, the sugar, that's not in its natural form. And then that wrap or that turkey bacon sandwich, the bread was not made that way. The cheese, I don't know, is it real cheese? Is it made out of other stuff? Turkey bacon, I don't know how natural that is. I mean, it's close to being from the turkey, but they did something to make it look like bacon and to make it taste like bacon. And then if you happen to put sriracha and whatever else sauces in there that have sugar, to me, that was an awesome breakfast. I thought, it's like all, 3 or 4 food groups, I'm doing good. So now my new breakfast is more natural. I tend to have a large omelet. I probably have about 10 egg whites with 1 full egg in there. That's very high in protein. And then I will have a lot of vegetables in there, mushrooms, peppers, spinach, whatever vegetable you don't necessarily like to eat. If you mask it in terms of your omelet, it tastes a little bit better. And then I have black coffee, and that's earlier on in the morning, to get me going. As I told you guys, I'm one of those people that loves my sleep. And then I have sweet potatoes. I don't necessarily get them with the skin on, but if you could keep the skin on your sweet potatoes, chop them up and put them in the air fryer, that's much better than that Starbucks breakfast that I had. It's a lot more filling and the volume is much more than that little, wrap.
What's on the skin? Why do you want us to keep the skin on? What's on the skin?
That's a great question. So you definitely want to wash it at first to get rid of all the bacteria. But in foods, most of the nutrients are concentrated in the skin. So your apples, any of your potatoes, unless the skin is poisonous, but for most foods, most of the nutrients are concentrated in the skin.
Okay, that's good to know. Because I could do with or without it, but maybe I'll do more with it. Yeah, so that looks like a great breakfast. We have some omelets, vegetables, some mushrooms, a little bit of black coffee to wake us up from our loving sleep. So yeah, and I think we're all culprit to this. I know I used to do this years ago before I stopped, which is, I don't have time for breakfast. I'll drive. So I'm not really a food person in the morning. It doesn't go down well with me. But I'd stop at my favorite Starbucks. I'd pick up my favorite latte, blah, blah, blah. And you know what I would do? I mean, the first few sips are fine, but I'll see a patient and I'll come back and sip. But now it's cold. Now it's cold. It doesn't taste good, but I'm still sipping on that sugar all day long. And so I quit that after I realized, that first of all, it doesn't even taste good and it's cold, right? And it was just kind of this thing, I just sit on my table, sip. And so thank you for kind of bringing that back to us. That's quick stop. I don't have time for breakfast. Might as well have made yourself an omelet, throw some mushrooms in there, prep the night before if necessary, or think about it when you're making dinner. What are we having the next morning? Prep the night before so that I don't have time for breakfast and is out of the way because you already prepped for it with dinner, which I'm sure you're probably prepping.
No, I to be honest, I'm not somebody that loves cooking. I have to be honest. I'm not one of those people that preps. My egg whites come in a carton. I just use the full egg. The peppers are pre-chopped. So you can do this in a way that's healthy. Like you can get frozen vegetables. They're pretty good. I have to be real with myself.
You start where you are, right? You start where you are, do what you can, do what's the least part of least resistance to make sure that you get the results. Because all we care about is results, right? And so you're like, okay, I'm not a cook. So I like to cook, I'm part of it, I don't have time, but you're like, okay, I don't have time and I don't like to cook. Get the the egg whites, get the chopped peppers, throw those things together, and breakfast is made. So you can still make it happen even if you don't have time and even if you don't like cooking.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we got the sleep, we got the eat, we got breakfast, we got things that grow out of the ground, fly, walk, and swim. I love it.
Absolutely. And I could stay on the nutrition. There's like a million more tips on the nutrition, but perhaps we can talk about that another time. But just for efficiency's sake or time's sake, I will move to the second E, which is emotions. So a lot of us use food for emotional comfort, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but if you use it too much, it can become a crutch and can impede you from achieving your weight loss goals. So just in terms of me, an example, my job was fairly stressful. I was working at night. So when I arrived at the hospital at night, and this is during the pandemic, I would have my Starbucks order waiting for me. So I'd bribe myself. You got to be on time at work, So I'd like put the order in, jump in my car and race there. Like I'll play a little game with myself. I just to learn to, manage my time better. I don't need to be playing games with food. So I'd have like my 3 lattes there because I know I'm not going to sleep all night, my 2 banana breads. So I'd chug that as I'm getting ready to see the patients. And then I'd bribe myself. I'm like, okay, DoorDash, Red Lobster closes at 9. I have to see XYZ patients before 9, then I can put my order in. And I was ordering whatever because I'm like, I deserve
it. Patients. I deserve it.
I deserve it, which is dangerous. So I was eating whatever, like all the stuff from Red Lobster with the sauces that's not necessarily healthy. You can eat out, but I was choosing, I don't know if you know those Brussels sprouts with bacon bits on top and all the syrup, and all the little bread. It was not good. So I was using food to motivate me to get through the night shift. And when I was feeling tired, I would have like an extra sweet treat to help me, get my energy up. So I should have recognized I am stressed out. It's not about, just playing a game with food. I am actually stressed out. My body does not do well at night. I'm a morning person. This is going against the grain of who I am. On top of that, with the pandemic, a lot of us had to deal with patients that were dying, or we'd have to call family members who couldn't come see their loved ones. And that takes an emotional toll on you. I didn't take the time to process that. I just played little games with I'm going to buy myself a treat. So after this phone call, I feel okay, So it's very important to take the time to deal with your emotions so that you do not have to use whatever your vice is, whether it's food or shopping, to overcome that and then have other problems that you have to deal with. So some of the ways you can deal with your emotions are journaling. Just the process of journaling and writing it down and taking the time to reflect will make you realize, okay, this situation I'm in is not necessarily healthy. Even if it's a relationship with a loved one and they tend to gaslight you or they don't listen to you, if you have that conversation or a fight with your loved one, you don't need to go get a cookie to make yourself feel better. You need to analyze the feelings and then say, is this a healthy relationship for me? That's the root issue. Other than journaling, you can talk to loved ones or people you trust. If that's not the case or applicable to you, you can get counseling. There's a lot of free, online counseling resources. I think one of the companies is BetterHelp. They have resources or counselors in the US and in Canada. If you're a spiritual person, you can go talk to your pastor. That's free, which is excellent. If you're in, school, university, they tend to have a lot of counselors, career counselors. So whatever your issue is, get to the root of it and deal with it. And also change your mindset towards food. It's okay to use food to celebrate occasionally, not every day, but we need to look at food as primarily fuel for our bodies. We're eating to give ourselves enough energy to keep going. And we want to put good quality fuel in our body as a way of investing in ourselves. If you have a Ferrari, you're not going to put the cheapest, gas in there or just put whatever's on sale. You invested in that Ferrari. You're going to put the best gas you can. You're going to go for the oil changes. You're not going to go to Joe Schmo down the street. You're going to go to, the dealer if you can afford it. And you're going to say, do the works, make sure everything is good. I already paid for this car. I want it to function at optimal levels. This is a car. Our bodies are even more valuable. So we need to treat our bodies with that much respect in terms of what we put inside of our body.
we are more valuable than Ferraris, okay? Our bodies are more valuable than Ferraris. If you're going to treat your Ferrari nice, please treat your body right. We kind of think about our mindsets, right? Our mindset towards food, identifying kind of what is stress, right? Journaling if we have to, reach out for help if you have to. But a lot of us, I would say a lot of us don't even identify stress. Like you have to do some work to kind of figure out. And I think we all do that. This is my reward for X. This is my reward for the X. And usually, yeah, you know, it's a lot of it is food, you know, and you're saying, yeah, celebrate with food, but not all the time. Understand that we eat so that we can live and not the other way around. My mom used to say that all the time. I didn't know what she was talking about. But but I was just like, yeah, whatever, give me something to eat. But yeah, so I think our mindset probably is the most important thing, because I think if you can identify, kind of like Dr. Anita is saying, if you can identify, hey, this is stress, you're journaling, you're reaching out for help, you're in school, you're reaching out to a counselor, and that helps to kind of minimize the likelihood that you're going to try to eat your emotions, right? And just feed it with whatever. But my favorite part is, this body is a Ferrari, take care of it. And then you don't get another one, you get one. Right? You get one. So good. So thank you. I think I really like the C. So it's an SEE, the sleep, eating things that work. What about our vegetarian friends?
I love that question. So for our vegetarian friends, you guys are lucky because you probably have a wider range of vegetables you're used to eating, and you're more, you know, experimental with vegetables. But you also need to make sure you balance that with enough fat, good sources of fat, avocado, nuts count as that, and then protein. Good sources of protein would include beans, for sure the eggs or egg whites, unless you're completely vegan. You could also try soy substitutes. Those tend to also be reasonable. And if you're using a protein supplement, you can use pea protein powder. That tends to also be okay. I've heard some people using marine peptides. It's a subtype of collagen that some people that are vegetarian, they don't eat meat, would consider using. So if you're going to use a protein supplement, which, you know, it's not necessarily natural, but say in between meals, if you need to add a little bit of extra protein, you could consider marine peptides that are collagen powder.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so good. So there's something in it for everybody. There's something also for our vegetarian friends. Okay, good. And then, so we talked about sleep, we talked about eat, and then we talked about watching the emotions. Okay, thank you. I think that's really so helpful. I'm going to have my patients come watch this video because there's a lot that we take for granted or that we're missing out. And that's why we're not getting the results we want, especially with weight loss, and then how it helps the joints. You know, you actually said something earlier about you know, if you're 10 pounds overweight, your knees can see 5 to 6 times that amount of pressure each time. So I wanted to reiterate that. I tell my patients that often, but it's really nice to hear from somebody else who's an who's done body physiology as well as internal medicine, just to kind of reiterate, seeing it from a different standpoint, and just kind of saying, so every pound that you lose, that's times 6 that your knees don't get to see. And the more pressure your knees see, the more likely you're going to have early osteoarthritis. Okay, so we have our wins. Can you share a story about a patient who had an amazing outcome after, you know, being under your care?
I love that question. So a lot of people right now are into Ozempic. I have mixed feelings. I think it's very useful for individuals that have diabetes, which is what it was primarily created for. And then if somebody has tried all the lifestyle factors to lose weight, meaning that they've honed in on their sleep, we've ruled out medical causes of weight gain, they're eating properly, and then if possible, because I also understand some people can't exercise, especially some of our patients with a lot of joint pain, which becomes a vicious cycle. But say they've honed in their diet, their sleep, they're not eating for emotional reasons, then they can't lose weight, then I can give them Ozempic. But just to go back to this patient, she hadn't explored those other ways of losing weight. She primarily came to me just because she wanted Ozempic. So I talked to her and figured out how she's eating, what her lifestyle is like. And then I told her the side effects of Ozempic, because I think this is something we don't talk about. After that, she's like, no, 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 no. I do not want Ozempic. So I introduced her to my nutrition coach, and she decided to go through with working with him. And I think she's lost about 30 pounds. And this lifestyle modifications, not with medications. And she is shocked because it's not so difficult. She's not putting so much money, because here, the health system I'm in, if you do not necessarily meet all the qualifying criteria for Ozempic, you have to pay quite a bit of money. So it's expensive. So she's paying for this nutrition coach, but she's investing in herself. She's investing in the food she's eating. She's lost, I think, 25 pounds in 3 months. So I was happy that I was able to talk to her and, let her know these are the potential repercussions. And she made an informed decision against using Ozempic, which is not necessarily popular, but I think people really need to be aware.
Okay. Can I ask, if you stop using Ozempic, does the weight come back?
I love that question. Yes, for many people, it comes back.
So that's the thing. So that's why the lifestyle modification is important, right? Because otherwise, then you're back on a yo-yo. And you're right, the medication is expensive. Insurance companies, even in the United States, are resistant and reluctant to pay for it. You need to jump through all kinds of hoops. So it sounds like no matter what, there still is. It is involved, but it's an investment in your Ferrari, and you only get one, right? So it's an investment in your body, you only get one. And so yes, the lifestyle modification, which we are doing, both of us actually very involved in kind of modifying our quality of life. But I started standing in my office because I realized sitting all day was going to slowly be the end of me. So I decided, you know what, I'm doing a standing desk, and that chair just sits down there and I stand here. And so we're just, trying to make every little thing count, so that we can have longer, healthier lives. So I have one last question for you, Dr. Anita, which is, what superpower do you wish you had and why?
That is a great question. And I'm going to ask you a question after this. But if I were to have a superpower, I think I'd like to know the future. But I can also see that backfiring on me, because I'm one of those people that wants to tell people this is what's going to happen. And even if I have like a premonition, I tell people and then they get mad at me, or they are like, how do you know that? I'm like, I don't know. But I mean, like, just to be able to see the future, be like, no, don't go down that street. That is going to happen. I think that'd be pretty cool. But yeah, that would be my superpower. But my question for you is, how did you think about this question? Like, I mean, it's so, it tells you a lot about a person's psychology. So why did you think about this question?
Because as a kid, because I'm a superhero junkie. I love superheroes. My mom didn't let me read as many superhero comics as I, because she felt that education was important. Who knows? But but if I had my way, I'd have read comics and superhero comics throughout my childhood. So I would have my special superheroes, and I think reading minds as a doctor, as a superhero doctor, would be my thing. And so, because sometimes people come in, a patient comes in and they may be like, not feeling comfortable, or just, wondering whether or not they should tell me a particular symptom because they don't think it's relevant. So for instance, somebody comes in with joint pains and doesn't want to tell me that they're having diarrhea, a little bit of embarrassment, a little bit of not really thinking that it's relevant, and says, well, I'll just talk to my diarrhea doctor about that. But it's important for me to know that you have diarrhea, because maybe you have Crohn's that's causing you arthritis, right? And so we can just kind of get to the nitty gritty, and then say, okay, well, hey, you have diarrhea, and I see your swollen joints. Maybe you have spondyloarthropathy, So I'm sure they will enjoy me reading their minds. So that would be the superhero. That would be the superhero power I wish I had. Hey, this was so much fun. So can you do me a favor? Can you tell our audience, how can they find you? How can they work with you? How can they reach out to you? Because I'm sure there's so much more, and I'm going to have you back because we have so much to talk about. But how can they reach you? How can they find you? You are amazing. And I think lots of patients would love to benefit from working with you. Tell us.
Okay, well, as Dr. Dada mentioned, I work at the Saskatchewan Health Region. I work in Regina. So to see an internist in the health region that I'm in, it's referral basis only. So you can ask your family medicine doctor or nurse practitioner to refer you to me. I take care of adults from 17, 18. I think my oldest patient has been 107. So any medical problems you have, if you have some geriatric related problems, I can help you with that. If you want some support with weight loss, high blood pressure, any medical problem, you can ask your doctor for a referral to see me. In terms of social media, on LinkedIn, I can be found as Anita Lwanga. On Instagram, it's at Lwanga. That's all lowercase, LWANGAMD. I'm most active there. On Twitter, it's at Dr. Lwanga. The L is capitalized at Lwanga MD. The L is capitalized, MD is capitalized as well. TikTok, I'm not as active as I used to be, but it's also at Dr. Lwanga, all lowercase. And on YouTube, you can just type in Dr. Lwanga and you will find me there.
Well, Dr. Lwanga is phenomenal. Dr. Lwanga, thank you so much for coming over. For everyone, thank you so much for listening to the show. We promise to bring you healthy tips so to help you towards a healthier version of you. If you are in the greater Seattle area, look us up at overlakearthritis.com. We have a team here ready to help you on your journey to a healthier version of you. Thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Healthy Joint, Healthy Life with Dr. Dada. And please share, tag anybody, give us a thumbs up, let us know that you watched and enjoyed this video. And thank you so much for watching, everybody. Bye. Bye, Dr. Anita.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.